In Pakistan, a fire engulfs a passenger train. The incident leaves at least 7 people dead. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. China blames Philippines over the near miss of vessels in the West Philippine Sea. Donald Trump says U.S. will descend to anarchy if President Joe Biden is re-elected. Japanese Finance Minister Shunichi Suzuki invites other G7 finance leaders to Niigata. And Lea Salonga and other A-list stars glitz up White House state dinner. The Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, spots about 1,000 Chinese vessels in the West Philippine Sea. J.D. Mahinay tells us more.
Between April 18 and 24, the Philippine Coast Guard vessels BRP Malapascua and BRP Malabrigo patrolled in the West Philippine Sea waters. Commodore J. Tariela saw about 100 Chinese maritime militia vessels of People's Liberation Army Navy corvette class and 2 China Coast Guard vessels. PCG adds that there are other encounters such as 4 Chinese vessels fishing in our territorial waters. Chinese maritime militia vessels were reportedly seen around Julian Felipe Reef vicinity.
That we were able to monitor the Chinese maritime militia are still occupying Julian Felipe Reef with a number of more than 100 vessels. At the same time, the Chinese Coast Guard has always been still aggressive and hostile in countering the presence of the Philippine Coast Guard vessels whenever we pass through Ayungin Shoal.
Last April 23, 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels intercepted the PCG vessels in the Ayungin Shoal. PCG reported the incident to the National Task Force West Philippine Sea. The Department of Foreign Affairs appeals to China to respect the rights of the country in the West Philippine Sea. DFA Assistant Secretary Maria Teresita Daza says CCG's interference with PCG patrol missions violates our freedom of navigation. J.D. Mahinay for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
China blames the Philippines for the near collision of a Chinese Coast Guard ship and Filipino patrol vessel. China says the act of the Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, was premeditated and provocative. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning claims the PCG barged into the China's territorial waters.
非方船只搭载记者冲闯仁爱礁海域，是一场有预谋的挑衅行为，蓄意找茬碰瓷，并借机炒作。中方对此表示严正抗议和强烈不满，敦促菲方尊重中国在南海的领土主权和海洋权益，停止采取导致局势复杂化的行动。
A near miss between a Chinese Coast Guard ship and a Philippine patrol vessel carrying journalists occurred in the West Philippine Sea on Sunday. Philippine senators expressed their opposition to this and call it China's new bullying tactic. Elijah Villanueva has the details.
So 4403, since you have disregarded our warning.
Request to stay clear from our passage in accordance with the collision regulation. Over.
Philippine Coast Guard vessels BRP Malapascua and BRP Malabrigo nearly collided with a Chinese vessel while on patrol in the West Philippine Sea.
So sa akin, sobra ng pambubuli ito ng mga Chinese military men sa mga nag-fishing dun sa West Philippine Sea. Sobra na pambubuli nito.
The chairman of the Senate Committee on Defense, Senator Jinggoy Estrada, shows his concern regarding the incident.
This is not only 10th time. Siguro ilang beses na tayo binubulin itong mga Chinese. At wala naman nangyari. Dahil panay file natin diplomatic protest. Yun ang nakakainis.
This is Philippine Coast Guard, BRP Malapascua, MRRB 4403. You are anchored within Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone.
Senator Estrada admits that the Philippines does not have the capability to match China's forces. The senator adds that it is time to seek help from our allied countries. He adds that it would also be significant if the West Philippine Sea issue is included in the upcoming meeting between President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and United States President Joe Biden.
Hindi tayo makikipaggera. And we cannot afford to enter into a war. Kaya kailangan siguro humingi tayo ng tulong sa ating mga makakampi.
Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa also condemns China's excessive bullying. De la Rosa appeals to the Philippine Coast Guard personnel to be patient and avoid conflict as the Philippines cannot afford to engage in a war with China. Former Deputy National Security Advisor, Professor Romel Banlawi, says that the escalating confrontation between the Philippine and Chinese Coast Guard is concerning.
Dangerous on both parties. Anong ginagawa? Dangerous para sa atin na ipagpatuloy yung ating maritime patrols at dangerous din sa China na ipagpatuloy yung kanilang maritime patrols kasi kung igigiit natin yung tinatawag natin na unilateral maritime patrols, we are increasing the risk for possible unintended violent encounters at sea. Ang worst case scenario ay magkaroon ng miscalculation leading to accidents that can create violent encounters at sea.
Banlawi warns that these conflicts would continue if there is no clear agreement or coordinated maritime patrols. The former advisor suggests negotiating with China to avoid future conflicts. Elijah Villanueva for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Department of Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Eduardo Jose de Vega wants a mandatory repatriation for remaining Filipinos in strife-torn Sudan. Eden Santos reports.
The Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA considers a mandatory repatriation for the remaining Filipinos in Sudan. Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Eduardo Jose de Vega says about 200 Filipinos remain in conflict-hit Sudan. He explains not all Filipinos in Sudan wanted to be repatriated.
Definitely, pinag-iisipan pa yung mandatory. Pero pag mandatory kasi, kailangan nandun na yung C-130, nandun na yung lahat ng equipment. So, at saka hindi lahat willing umalis. So, definitely, it's in the realms of possibility. In fact, I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to say this. There will be DND people as well going to Cairo to check as to the possibilities about that, no? So, ganun po kasi mandatory. Pero ang issue dyan, maliwanag po natin, meron na tayong mandatory sa some countries pero may mga Pilipino pa doon. Like in Afghanistan and so forth. So, are we gonna drag them out, no? So, ang maganda rin yung mandatory kung sa mga lugar na fully operational yung airport or what. Hindi ganun po yung Sudan, no? Pero however, definitely we're considering it, no? Because ang sabi naman ng mga locals, this is happening all the time in Sudan, except ngayon mas matagal.
A health expert says COVID-19 cases in the Philippines are still manageable despite the recent hike in the positivity rate. Vin Pascua tells us more.
Infectious disease expert Dr. Ron Jean Salante believes COVID-19 cases in the Philippines are still manageable. This is despite the recent increase in the positivity rate. Salante explains there are no signs that hospitals will be filled. He also cites the new infections data, pointing out COVID deaths are not increasing. He says severe cases are not increasing and the number of people going to the hospitals is not increasing either. Solante adds that the rising cases may be possible due to XBB.1.16 or the Arcturus strain. He says the symptoms of Arcturus are also similar to other COVID-19 variants. He explains Arcturus spreads faster due to mutations in the spike protein. But Solante says the important thing is there are no signs that Arcturus can cause severe COVID. Meanwhile, Iloilo and Bacolod cities reinstated the mandatory wearing of face masks in several areas due to COVID hikes. The national government is not keen on coming up with the same order, but the Department of Health continues to urge the public to practice health and safety protocols amid the slight COVID hike. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, hold a fun run as a reminder for World Safety and Health at Work. According to DOLE Occupational Safety and Health Center, it is important to celebrate the annual activity, especially with COVID-19 still being an issue.
Doing their work, it should be done safely so that we maintain our good health. This is in solidarity with our partners in the private sector, in government, and in this fun run, we are promoting, or this is running the talk of safety and health, where we're also promoting the healthy lifestyle, which is very important.
Cocoeco said the number one priority for employers is to focus on their health.
In everything we do, so that we have good health as we do our work. So this is really the event that the center has organized to commemorate this World Day for Safety and Health.
The campaign being held is for employers to be able to ensure the health of its staff and employees. Cocoeco adds that private and public companies should prioritize the safety of their employees in any profession. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, has estimated that the inflation rate for the month of April will slow down. According to the BSP, the inflation rate for the current month could range from 6.3% to 7.1%. Inflation refers to the rate at which prices of goods and services increase. Last April 1, the major drop in liquefied petroleum gas, or LPG, prices helped decelerate the inflation rate. During the said date, LPG prices were reduced by over 10 pesos per kilo, while auto LPG costs were dropped by more than 50 pesos. The Philippine Statistics Authority inflation data for the month of April will be released next Friday, May the 5th. The Social Security System, or SSS, is strengthening its campaign to collect contributions from members and companies that have not remitted employee contributions. They have targeted 10 delinquent establishments in Manila under their program, Race or Run After Contribution Evaders. One of the establishments is an office located on the 6th floor of a building. The SSS found that the office has not paid contributions since 2018, despite the office claiming to have their taxes up to date. Another establishment, a newly opened canteen, was also inspected by the SSS. The administration conducted simultaneous operations in over 100 locations across the country, and a total of 847 employers are included in the delinquent list. Delinquent employers may opt to pay their unpaid contributions in installment. More than 1,000 agrarian reform beneficiaries in Central Luzon have been awarded land titles for farmers in the country. It was headed by Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrado Estrella III, Senator Amy Marcos, and Senator Francis Tolentino. The program covers 1,000 hectares of agricultural land from provinces of Nueva Ecija, Aurora, Bataan, Bulacan, Pampanga, Tarlac, and Zambales. This is in line with the directive of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to strengthen the agricultural sector and provide land titles for local farmers. 636 land titles were issued to to 585 beneficiaries under the Support to Parcelization of Lands for Individual Titling project. Meanwhile, 437 electronic land titles or e-titles were given to 483 beneficiaries under the same initiative. Estrella says that the beneficiaries will no longer have to pay once the new Agrarian Emancipation Act is signed by the President. The proposed law is a crucial step towards improving agricultural production and increasing land productivity. The bill is one of the priority legislative measures outlined by the President to counter the high inflation rate in the country. Coming up, Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu to attend a security summit meeting in India amid border tensions. UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly urges citizens to evacuate before Sudan ceasefire ends. And Turkey inaugurates its first nuclear power plant. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Isang tuwa ang naihahatid ng pagliliwaliw sa Pilipinas.
Napakaganda. Ang daming attractions, ang mga tao ang babait.
Yung pinaka-natatanging aspeto ng ating turismo, nasasayang pag hindi natin buksan ang mata natin ng tunay.
Pero dahil sa pandemya, bumagsak ang turismo.
Marami sa mga stakeholders hindi nila nararamdaman minsan yung budget na dapat nakalaan sa kanila.
Mataas ang potential ng ecotourism, pero kaya hindi yan aangat ng mabilis ay dahil maraming Pilipino hindi kilala ang sariling kalikasan.
Makalipas ang 3 taon, paano natin mahihikayat ang mga dayuhan, pati na rin ang ating mga kababayan na it's more fun in the Philippines? Mag-reality check tayo.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Taiwan's defense ministry confirms that a long-range Chinese combat drone circled their island. Authorities said Beijing's twin-tailed Scorpion combat drone can carry payloads of heavy weapons. According to a map provided by Taipei, the drone flew around their island, first crossing the Bashi Channel that separates Taiwan from the Philippines, then up the east of the country before crossing back towards the Chinese coast. The ministry added 38 Chinese warplanes and 6 Navy vessels in 24 hours. Taipei said 19 of the aircraft crossed the median line or its air defense identification zone. Some analysts say China sent its combat drone when a U.S. Navy patrol plane flew through the Taiwan Strait. Yet Washington insisted it operated within the Taiwan Strait in accordance with international law. Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu has arrived in India to attend a key security summit meeting. This is the first visit to India by a Chinese defense minister since a deadly clash between their troops in 2020. The root cause of the tensions is the 3,440-kilometer-long disputed border in the Himalayan region. Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh urged Li to resolve all border issues for existing bilateral agreements and commitments. Reports say Li did not respond to Singh's comments. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken host South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol for a luncheon at the State Department in Washington. This is part of Yoon's state visit to the United States. Harris mentions the two countries' common cultural and social ties. Blinken commends Yoon's leadership in a time of global crisis.
South Korea and the United States, as the Secretary has mentioned, also share strong cultural and people-to-people ties. K-pop bands, they top the billboards in the United States, including BTS, who I had the great pleasure of meeting and inviting to my office in the West Wing. And to the great pleasure of my niece, I must tell you.
The reality is this: the friendship between nations, like all friendships, ultimately comes down to the actions of individuals. And it's here that I'd like to express our enormous gratitude to President Yoon. At a time of tremendous challenge to the international rule of law and the United Nations Charter, to our democracies, indeed to our planet, Mr. President, your principled leadership has helped bring us even closer together and has made Korea a global pivotal state.
The United States and South Korea unite to deter the North Korean nuclear threat. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol celebrated Seoul's stronger than ever alliance with Washington in a joint meeting of Congress on Thursday. Yoon is on a week-long U.S. state visit to mark the two countries' 70th anniversary of friendship. The visitation is amid military threats from North Korea, the war in Ukraine, and other global challenges facing both countries.
Our alliance was forged 70 years ago to defend Korea's freedom. The alliance has now become a global alliance that safeguards freedom and peace around the world. Korea will fulfill the responsibilities. It will play its part that matches its economic capacity. We need to speed up Korea, the US, Japan, trilateral security cooperation to counter increasing North Korean nuclear threat.
Donald Trump vows to crush Joe Biden in the upcoming 2024 United States presidential election. During the first campaign stop since Biden entered the race, Trump warns that the U.S. will descend into anarchy if he is not returned to office. The defiant address comes with the twice impeached former president's legal woes multiplying.
The choice in this election is now between strength and weakness, between success or failure, between safety or anarchy, between peace or conflict, and prosperity or catastrophe.
Finance Minister Shunichi Suzuki says Japan will invite some emerging nations to the G7 finance leaders meeting. Sources say the countries whose financial or finance leaders will be invited are India, Indonesia, South Korea, Singapore, and Brazil. The meeting of finance ministers and central bank governors is scheduled to be held in Niigata on May 11 to May 13. Suzuki says Japan also intends to strengthen its financial safety net with Southeast Asian countries. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visits British PM Rishi Sunak for a bilateral meeting. This after the British PM welcomes Italian leader at his residence at 10 Downing Street. There, they discussed matters of migration, defense, and the war in Ukraine. The two leaders have a private tour of Westminster Abbey, where British monarch King Charles III will be crowned on May 6. Broadcast company Vice Media cuts more than 100 jobs and calls off its highly regarded program, Vice News Tonight. The layoff is part of a more comprehensive restructuring of its business, as well as a move for economic headwinds. But its management assures that the laid-off employees will receive severance pay. Bruce Dixon and Josefa Lokwandwala, Vice Media's co-CEOs, say that the company will concentrate on distributing content through free and ad-supported streaming services. While Vice World News is set to shut down in the coming weeks, the company's restructure assures retained employees that they will be contained under a singular news umbrella. The restructuring will have major implications on the news teams at Vice Media. British Broadcasting Corporation Chairman Richard Sharp has announced his resignation on Friday. His announcement comes after inquiry findings reveal that he had breached rules for failing to declare his involvement in arranging a loan for then Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Sharp's appointment by former Prime Minister Johnson casts a shadow of doubt on the current administration, citing incidents like influence peddling and cronyism. These findings put pressure on UK's current Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's controversial appointments. Sunak's Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab resigned less than a week ago due to allegations of bullying and inciting a culture of hazing within his walls. Sharp was Prime Minister Sunak's boss at the investment bank Goldman Sachs and is a wealthy past donor to the ruling Conservatives. The chairman of the BPC is always appointed by the UK monarch on the advice of the government. Sharp has since denied he got the job as a quid pro quo for helping out the UK's top officials. Foreign Secretary James Cleverly urges Britons and their relatives in Sudan to use evacuation flights. This while they are still available as the end of a temporary ceasefire looms. The Foreign Office says London has evacuated 536 people on 6 flights since launching civilian airlifts, with further flights planned throughout Thursday. Doubts are growing about the ability to continue the operation. Heavy battles occurred on the second full day of a 3-day U.S. brokered truce. The UK has been using an airstrip near the capital, Khartoum, to fly its citizens, their dependents, and other foreign nationals out of the conflict-mired country. They are being taken to a British military base in Cyprus before onward travel on to UK. London had faced domestic criticism for initially extracting only diplomats and their families at the weekend and for lagging in the number of people that had airlifted out. Armed fighters rampages in Sudan's Darfur amid 72-hour ceasefire extension. The two rivals battle one another in loot shops and homes. The clash is between Sudan's Army General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the paramilitary rapid support forces led by General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo. The truce has brought calm in Khartoum and Omdurman, allowing foreign governments to evacuate thousands of their nationals. According to Health Ministry data, Sudan's casualties reach at least 512, while 4,193 are wounded in the fighting. NATO allies and partner countries deliver more than 98% of the combat vehicles promised to Ukraine. Ukraine's allies sent more than 1,550 armored vehicles, 230 tanks, and other equipment, along with vast amounts of ammunition.
Through the contact group led by the United States, NATO allies and partners have provided unprecedented support to Ukraine. More than 98% of the combat vehicles promised to Ukraine have already been delivered. That means over 1,550 armored vehicles, 230 tanks and other equipment, including vast amounts of ammunition.
More than 30,000 troops are estimated to make up the new brigades. NATO partner countries such as Sweden and Australia also provided armored vehicles. This places Ukraine in a stronger position as it contemplates launching a counteroffensive. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal on Thursday described the call between President Xi Jinping and Volodymyr Zelensky as very productive. Although President Zelensky said he was encouraged by Chinese President Xi's call last Wednesday, and as Western officials welcomed China's move, it did not appear to improve peace prospects. Ukrainian officials said China's overture was encouraging. Deputy foreign ministers and envoys believe BRICS will bring peace and stability to the Middle East. From Cape Town, South Africa, RT correspondent Karabo Letatla reports.
And taking position is also the mandate of the BRICS Deputy Foreign Affairs Ministers and Special Envoys into the Middle East. The Middle East has for decades been at the mercy and interest of Western influence and beset by conflict that wasn't necessarily of its own making. But now, these deputy foreign affairs ministers into the region say this is why BRICS is the vehicle to bring about peace and stability into the Middle East.
Each of our countries, and especially we together, can do a lot to regulate conflicts and crisis situations in the Middle East and Northern Africa. In particular, we emphasize the success of our Chinese friends who have done a lot to bring Saudi Arabia and Iran closer. This is a major breakthrough. Also, our efforts were noted in regards to Syria and Turkey, and naturally we did our part to bring Saudi Arabia and Iran closer. Of course, we've done a lot to bring closer the positions of the parties of the Syrian conflict as a part of the Astana process to solve problems Syria is currently facing. Regarding Yemen, we've also had a lot of meetings with various Yemeni powers as well as with Saudi representatives.
But Russia has a lot on its plate. Not only does it have to contend with the might and force of the G7 countries and NATO in the conflict in Ukraine, it is also being accused by Western media of being a destabilizing influence in the conflict in Sudan.
Turkey is getting ready to fire up its first nuclear power plant. Workers are loading fuel into the Russian-built Akuyu reactor. From Turkey, RT correspondent Maria Finoshina tells us more.
We are at the construction site of Turkey's first nuclear power plant, Akuyu, an ambitious multi-billion-dollar joint project between Ankara and Moscow, the biggest ever in the two countries' long history of cooperation. It is also the largest nuclear construction site in the world in terms of generating capacity and number of units being built simultaneously. Rosatom's state corporation generates about 20% of the total electricity produced in Russia and currently has an immense portfolio of international orders. 34 nuclear power units in 11 countries are under construction. Akuyu is by far the biggest among them and truly unique. Safety is among the top priorities, as the Deputy General Director tells me. The project meets all modern so-called post-Fukushima requirements, updated following the 2011 nuclear disaster in Japan. Akuyu is said to be resistant to earthquakes, tsunamis, and even a plane crash. Safe and powerful, the station will cover up to 10% of Turkey's electricity needs with green, carbon-free energy. Akuyu nuclear power plant will have 4 power units. You can see them from here. The first one almost ready, number 2, 3, and the 4th is barely visible now. The works have started recently. Russian Generation 3 Plus reactors will be used here with a capacity of 1,200 megawatts each. When it comes online, the power plant will be able to generate power enough to provide electricity to a city the size of Istanbul.
The National Seismological Center says 2 earthquakes hit Nepal overnight. The first earthquake happened at 11:58 at a magnitude of 4.8, while the second tremor occurred at 1:30 in the morning, measuring 5.9 magnitude. Authorities recorded the earthquake's epicenters at Bajurasda Hakot. No casualties have been reported. Coming up, Disney sues Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. United States announces new rules for migrants. And Nazi camp guard Josef Schutz dies at 102. Please don't go away. Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news.
As an archipelago, the maritime industry in the Philippines is very significant. It is almost second nature for our country to have seafarers and shipbuilders as a thriving profession. How much support and recognition does the maritime industry get? What are the issues surrounding this sector? What is the future for our seafarers and shipbuilders alike? On this episode, we are sailing full steam ahead.
It will open the communication from the maritime sector at magkakaroon tayo ng better maritime industry.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
The Canadian province of Ontario just made it easier for those who wish to serve in the police force to get into the academy. How? Joshua Santillana has the story.
To become a police officer in Ontario, Canada, one must be a Canadian citizen, at least 18 years old, be a high school graduate with good moral character, and amongst other things, complete the required basic constable training at the Ontario Police College. This week, Premier Doug Ford has announced that the Ontario government is removing tuition fees and post-secondary requirements for those wanting to become a police officer. Currently, the cost of the police program is about $15,000. There are about 2,200 students at the Ontario Police College, and it will cost the province an estimated $34 million annually to cover 100% of their tuition fees. According to Premier Ford, this is to encourage more police recruitment in response to people not feeling safe to take the subway and go for a walk, thereby having the need for more police officers on the streets. Immediate responses of Ontarians online show a mixed reaction of praise and criticism. Praise for making it easier for those who cannot afford police education, and criticism on why the government cannot extend the same support to healthcare workers and calling instead for higher educational requirements to become a police officer. Reporting from Toronto, Canada, Joshua Santillana from ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
About 1% of the world's population has autism spectrum disorder. About 75 million people. The World Health Organization says 1 out of 100 children worldwide has a form of autism. Today, we'll find out from Net25's Rose Papa Angeles how the U.S. state of Maryland is celebrating Autism Acceptance Month.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore presents a proclamation declaring April as Autism Acceptance Month in Maryland. The proclamation recognizes people with autism and those who advocate on their behalf. It also honors contributions of the autism community. Governor Moore says individuals with autism have incredible strengths and gifts that often go untapped. Part of the celebration is the governor presenting a citation to Marcus Moore. Marcus Moore is an individual living with autism who has contributed to the autism community. Another citation was given to Ken White for his support and promotion of opportunity access and choice for individuals with autism. White is the general manager of the Historic Inns of Annapolis. Maryland is one of the 3 U.S. states with the highest prevalence of autism diagnosis with rates of over 4%. In Chevy Chase, Maryland, Rose Papa Angeles for Eagle News. We'll live in extraordinary times.
The United States announces new migration rules. The changes include overseas processing centers and tougher penalties for people who unlawfully enter the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the changes have been made in anticipation of a surge of arrivals next month when COVID-era rules expire.
Focused on making migration more safe, orderly, and humane, and on advancing the interests of the American people. If you step back, and it's really important to do that, globally, there are more than 100 million people on the move today, compelled to leave their homes in search of security and better lives.
Media conglomerate Disney files a lawsuit against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for the Republicans' takeover of its theme park district, charging the governor engaged in a government retaliation. The complaint was filed after a Disney World Oversight Board formed by Republican hopeful voted to cancel a deal that gives the business control over the design and construction choices of its extensive properties near Orlando. Disney's lawsuit claims that DeSantis' efforts to assert control over its operations threatens its business and it violates its constitutional rights. The ongoing dispute has elevated the profile of DeSantis, who is seen as a potential Republican candidate for president. Previously, DeSantis took over the self-governing area of Disney World and created a new board of supervisors to supervise municipal services in the huge theme parks. A fire broke out in a passenger train, killing at least 7 people in southern Pakistan. According to Railways official Mohsin Sial, the train caught fire in the Chairpur district. The train was on its way from Karachi to the eastern city of Lahore when one of the cars caught fire. 6 people were killed while a woman died jumping from the window of the moving train. The fire also damaged other cars in the train. Train accidents in Pakistan are often the result of poor railways and negligence, but the cause of the flames is still unclear. Thai police investigate a woman accused of cyanide poisoning murders. Authorities charged the suspect, Sararat Rangsi Withaporn, with premeditated murder. The suspect was held in Bangkok after inquiries into a friend's suspicious death. The victim's family raised suspicions, leading to an investigation that revealed traces of cyanide in her body. Initial reports say financial instability seems to be the motive for the murders.
เกี่ยวกับเรื่องการให้เงินไปสำหรับการฝากในการขอครับเป็นดอกเบี้ยอะไรอย่างเงี้ยฮะเท่าไหร่คะ 70,000 ครับสำหรับที่ผมทราบนะครับแล้วก็จะมีส่วนที่ว่าเอาไปลงทุนซึ่งขายของที่ TikTok อีกก็คือที่โอนไปก็คือ 26,800 ก็คืออีกก้อนนึงครับ
But police say Sararat was previously diagnosed with psychiatric issues. Officers believe Sararat killed 13 others, including her ex-partner and 2 female police officers. Sources say the cyanide murders began in 2020.
เพราะฉะนั้นต่อไปต้องกำชับพนักงานสอบสวนการตายโดยผิดธรรมชาติทุกกรณีพนักงานสอบสวนต้องทำให้ครบกระบวนการคือต้องผ่าชันสูตรพลิกศพอันนี้ระเบียบมันมีอยู่แล้วแต่พี่เนี่ยว่าผมเข้าใจนะต่างจังหวัดไกลๆเนี่ยหมอนิติเวชเนี่ยปัจจุบันมีน้อยนะหมอนิติเวชเนี่ยเป็นหมอผ่าศพนั่นเถอะซึ่งมีน้อยนะครับมีเฉพาะโรงพยาบาลใหญ่ๆนะเช่นโรงพยาบาลในเมือง
Meanwhile, Sararat has denied all the charges. The case has shocked the nation, and evidence gathering could be a challenge, as some bodies have already been cremated. The head of the New Life Praise Center and Church, Ezekiel Odero, was arrested in relation to the killing of his followers. Interior Minister Kituri Kindiki says Odero is being processed to face criminal charges over the mass killing. Kenyan authorities recovered close to 100 individuals. Most died en route to the hospital, while others continue to refuse to eat and accept medical attention. Only 39 people have been rescued. Odero's arrest was only days after the discovery of mass graves linked to cult leader Paul Mackenzie Ntenge. Police have not yet confirmed the connection of the 2 incidents. The oldest person to be convicted of Holocaust crimes has died at the age of 102. Josef Schutz was found guilty last June of assisting in the murder of thousands of prisoners at Sachsenhausen near Berlin. Schutz had always denied being an SS guard at the Nazi concentration camp. He was found guilty of aiding and abetting the murders of 3,518 people. He was also complicit in the shooting of Soviet prisoners of war and the murder of others with Zyklon B gas. Germany has been trying to bring former Nazi war criminals to court after a landmark case in 2011 in which ex-SS guard John Damjanjuk was found guilty. Coming right up, yuan overtakes US dollars as China's most used border currency. Japanese startup iSpace fails bid for historic moon landing. And Mr. International Philippines returns with a fierce new theme. Catch the latest in business, sports, and entertainment when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Ako talaga dapat ang unang babaeng makikita mo, wala nang iba.
Para hindi ka na magselos at kung ano-ano pa mga isipin mo. Magpakasal na kaya tayo. Baby?
Baby?
Ano, Juan? Baby? Ang tanong, kakayanin ba ng ate mo kung ilan ang gusto kong maging anak?
Bakit? Ilan ba gusto mong anak?
1.
Isa lang pala.
1,007 mil.
Po ba magpatulog po ako saglit sa inyo na pahawak po nito? Teka lang ha, magugas na kasi ako ng kamay.
Oh no!
Teka.
Ate, pwede ko ba ako doon?
Oo, toothbrush lang ako, kuya.
Microsoft's president says the EU was a better place to start a business after the UK blocks deal. From London, England, Ryan Florentino reports.
Microsoft recently said the European Union was more attractive for businesses than post-Brexit Britain after Great Britain blocked its vast takeover of video game maker Activision on competition fears. The UK's decision means the multi-billion-dollar deal cannot go ahead globally. Brad Smith, vice chair and president, made the remark one day after UK regulators prevented the $69 billion deal for the creator of Call of Duty on its fears that it would hit cloud gaming and curb consumer choice. The regulator hit back, saying it had to do what's best with people, not merging firms with commercial interests. If it had been approved, the $68.7 billion deal would have been the gaming industry's biggest ever takeover and would have seen Microsoft get hold of massively popular game titles such as Call of Duty, Candy Crush, and World of Warcraft. Responding, spokesperson for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak insisted the UK has an extremely attractive tech sector and a growing games market. Xbox owner Microsoft launched its bid for Activision in early 2022 to create the world's third biggest gaming firm after China's Tencent and Japan's PlayStation maker Sony. Aside from this deal, the UK is still open for business, however, are trying to host various companies that can effectively compete, grow, and innovate together. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Ryan Florentino for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Yuan overtakes the dollar as China's most used border currency. The Chinese yuan overtakes the US dollar for the first time, becoming the most widely used currency for cross-border transactions. Cross-border payments and receipts in yuan rose to a record $549.9 billion in March from $434.5 billion a month earlier. The yuan was used in 48.4% of all Chinese border transactions, while the dollar share declined to 46.7% from 48.6% a month earlier. The volume of cross-border transactions covers both the current and and capital accounts. China has long been promoting the use of the yuan to settle cross-border trades as part of an effort to internationalize the use of its currency. The yuan's use in global trade finance remains low, though it has shown steady increases annually. Japanese startup iSpace concedes its attempt to become the first company to land on the moon. iSpace, however, pledges to move forward with its new missions. The unmanned Hakuto R Mission 1 lander had been scheduled to touch down on the moon's surface overnight. However, about 25 minutes after the landing was to have occurred, the firm could not establish contact. iSpace says it's most likely that the lander eventually made a hard landing on the moon's surface. Standing just over 2 meters tall and weighing 340 kilograms, the lander entered lunar orbit last month. The firm believes the moon will support a population of 1,000 people by 2040, with 10,000 more visiting each year. A second mission involving both a lunar landing and the deployment of its own rover are in the works. That is tentatively scheduled for next year. So far, only the United States, Russia, and China have put a spacecraft on the lunar space. Philippine basketball team Agila Pilipinas prepares for their championship berth in the 32nd Southeast Asian Games. We have Shane Lim with the score.
Gilas Pilipinas will compete in the 32nd Southeast Asian Games in Cambodia. The tournament will be held on May 9 to 16 in Phnom Penh. Gilas will first face Malaysia on May 9. After a one-day break, they will play again on May 11 against Cambodia and on May 13 against Singapore. Meanwhile, the defending champion, Indonesia, is in Group B with Vietnam, Thailand, and Laos. The top two finishers in each group will advance to the crossover semifinals set on May 15. The losers will dispute the bronze medal, while semifinal winners will meet for the gold medal on May 16. The Philippines is looking to reclaim the gold medal it held since 1991, after losing it to Indonesia in the Hanoi Games last year. Shane Lim for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The male pageant scene in the Philippines is once again heating up as Mr. International PH returns with a bang. 43 candidates recently took part in a press presentation in Pasay City. The Mr. International Philippines pageant returned with the theme Warriors in 2023. Quezon City Representative Austin Cabanata won the Media's Choice Award. Nathaniel Tiu from Cebu City placed first runner-up, and CJ Mark Omolon from Palawan Province was second runner-up. The grand coronation night will be on June 28, 2023.
The lessons I learned from the pageant, hindi na siya nawala eh. Ginamit ko na lang siya punta sa show business. You know, day in, day out, pag-uwi, you know, do my homework. Really focus on the acting workshops, even dance workshops, pag-hosting. Really all around this time. Kaya hindi to until coronation, but this time, pang-legacy na po to eh. Kaya I really want to show what I'm capable of for the long term.
Also, the eldest son of actress and beauty queen Patricia Javier and American chiropractor Rob Walcher is set to represent the Philippines in an international pageant. Robert Douglas Walcher IV, 16, will compete in the upcoming Mr. Teen International pageant. United States President Joe Biden's celebratory dinner with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol was star-studded. The dinner was to commemorate their 70-year alliance. Biden reaffirmed their partnership and commitment to technology advancement. Attendees included Angelina Jolie, her son Maddox Jolie Pitt, and Chip and Joanna Gaines. President Yoon Suk-yeol was presented with a guitar autographed by Don McLean. Broadway stars Norm Lewis, Jessica Fosk, and Lea Salonga performed at the event. Tony Award winner Lea Salonga was the first Filipino artist to perform at a formal U.S. reception. Now that it's the weekend, it's time to relax with a movie. Stephanie Mayo has her pick for what to watch.
2024 has been a tough year. Our sales are down, our growth is down.
Sonny, I brought you in here to grow the basketball business.
Based on true events, the biographical sports drama Air has been getting rave reviews from critics all over the world and is being touted as this year's best movie so far. It tells the origin story of Air Jordan, a line of basketball shoes and sports apparel produced by Nike. Directed by Ben Affleck, who also stars in the movie with Matt Damon and a slate of Hollywood A-listers, Air takes the viewers to 1984 Oregon, where all the drama on corporate branding begins. Fast-paced, fun, thrilling with a terrific cast ensemble, Air is a must-see and is still playing in Philippine cinemas. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila.
British cheesemakers are producing a wider variety of soft cheeses alongside traditional Stilton and cheddar. From London, England, Ariane Celestino reports.
Former Chef Hedges founded the Hampshire Cheese Company in 2005 and started producing Tamworth, a Camembert-style handmade cheese. She is one of dozens of entrepreneurs who have gone into cheese making across England, Scotland, and Wales. As a result, the country now produces a wider variety of soft cheeses, alongside traditional British hard cheeses such as Stilton and cheddar. France, the country of 1,000 cheeses, is often a source of inspiration. 9 employees work in Hedges' Creamery near Basingstoke in England's southern Hampshire region, making about 7,000 cheeses a week and up to 12,000 during the winter season.
British food culture has improved so much over the last 30 years, and particularly with cheese. I think people are more interested in food, they're more interested in the provenance of their food, and they're more willing to try different things. So I think that's really helped the cheese industry generally.
Stacey Hedges said that she would have never thought it would be as big as that, regarding her booming French-style cheese business as another lorry-load leaves the green Hampshire countryside for some of British finest restaurants. Her website even carries a quote from celebrity French chef Raymond Blanc, who describes Tamworth as the best camembert in the world. Her success has inspired other Brits. From London, United Kingdom, this is Ariane Celestino for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
It's finally the end of the work week, so here's a quote from Viktor Frankl, the author of Man's Search for Meaning. For one to give light, one must endure burning. For me, leadership is not a privilege, it is something that one must earn. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Nina Richie Flores, wishing everyone a great and meaningful weekend. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.